The Invader 1. What's up guys, Invader 1 here again, and this time with the Human Sentinel. I have not provided any gameplay on the Human Sentinel and no builds yet on the Human Sentinel, so I figured, hey, this is the time. And the gameplay here is actually going to be a lot of fun. It's actually on gold instead of platinum, guys. So as you guys know, I'm doing a lot of build videos and lately you guys have been asking for gold as well. So I'm mixing it up between platinum and gold because, well, guess what? I have a lot of platinum videos, and all the other series that you guys are watching with me are all platinum. So I'm gonna, put some gold gameplay in there. So. In regards to the Human Sentinel, I want to talk about him a little bit because he's actually really interesting. He is not a kit that I use all the time, but he is definitely a kit that I enjoy using for sure when I do get to use it. Now, what's interesting is that a lot of people have difficulty understanding how to use this guy. And in the past, because most of the times you look at him and you think, well, this is, he's a biotic. He's got warp, he's got throw, he can detonate his own biotic explosions. Well, what's so hard about that? But he's got tech armor as well, and that's what makes him a sentinel. So he's kind of like, some people call him in the past, kind of like a poor man's biotic, which is really interesting because a poor man's adept, I guess, because his power recharge is so slow regardless. Even if you put a heavy weapon, a light weapon, you put ultralight materials, you could have 200 power percent recharge speed, and his power recharge and warp and a throw are quite slow. Throw is fast, but warp itself for you to detonate and get biotic explosions, it takes quite a bit. So the build that I'm using here, guys, I think you guys will enjoy it quite a bit, and I think you guys will find it pretty awesome. And I think it's a really cool build because it's kind of like a mix between both worlds. With this build, you can do biotic explosions, and yet at the same time have a really cool weapon, and at the same time you could do do something with your tech powers. So let's talk about that. Well, this guy has a few things. He's got tech armor. That's what makes him a sentinel, because it's the tech power. And yes, tech armor is a tech power. It can do quite a few things. It can stagger enemies, and at the same time, it can kill enemies. It can stagger enemies, and at the same time, it provides damage reduction. So the way I'm using it here, you'll notice that I do not detonate it at all in this game, but you can actually use it the entire game. You can actually detonate tech armor the entire game to kill swarmers, to clean up an area, to stagger enemies. Let's say you're overrun, and I probably should have used tech armor in some instances here when I did get overrun, and it didn't hit me at the moment. But tech armor is good for that kind of thing, where you can stagger enemies as well, and it's really excellent. So let's look at the way I have it spec'd out. I'm setting up tech armor here for one thing. Pretty much one thing only, besides the bonuses that you get already with it. So the one thing that I am using tech armor for is for damage reduction. What's great about damage reduction is that it doesn't, let's say the enemy does 1,000 damage when they slap you in the face. Well, if you have damage reduction of 40 or 50%, well, it's no longer 1,000, it's 500, so you take less damage. So that's absolutely amazing. So the way I have tech armor spec'd out on the Human Sentinel is this way. On rank 4, I have it set for durability instead of damage and radius, because I'm not using tech armor offensively, even though that is very fun to do, and I will most likely do another gameplay with the Sentinel that way, or with somebody with tech armor, and show you guys how fun that can be as well. But durability on rank 4 gives me an additional 5%, and then on rank 5 I go for power damage, and this is what makes the Human Sentinel's warp one of the most strongest warps in the game. It's actually a little stronger than let's say some of the other characters that have warp, except for the Tyrian Sentinel, because he also has tech armor. So if you pick rank 5 power damage, it increases the power damage and force by 30% while the armor is active. So that's an additional 30% power damage that you get on warp and on throw. So that's absolutely amazing. So that's a great thing for the Human Sentinel. And for rank 6, I go for durability instead of power recharge, because although the power recharge is great if I'm going with a really light weapon, and that'll be fun, you could choose power recharge so you could do your warp and throw combos really fast. Personally, I go for durability, an additional 10%. By doing it this way, you get 50% damage reduction, which is amazing. And the recharge speed for the tech armor when you detonate it is only 2.79 seconds. So it's actually really good, guys. And even though your explosion damage and the damage on the tech armor is less, it's still 480, and the radius is 3.6 meters. So you're still doing a little bit of damage and staggering enemies with the tech armor if you decide to actually detonate it. And when you detonate, I definitely recommend to pop it back on, so you can get a damage reduction bonus, and you can use it again and again and again. So that's a great thing, guys, and that's a really fun game as well. If you ever decide to just use tech armor offensively and to just switch the build, and you still get a damage reduction bonus, you just don't get it to 50%. I believe that if you go for just the first 3 points and then actually go for damage in rank 4, and then power recharge in rank 6, you're still getting 40% damage reduction, which is absolutely amazing. So now, how am I using this guy? Well, I'm going to talk about the rest of the build as well. So I'm using this guy as two ways. I'm using it as a biotic, so I am using warp and throw combos. But the thing is that I know that that combo is so slow, so by the time I can actually get throw out, either I don't know, the enemy's already been killed by a teammate, which is totally fine, or it's just I'll never get my throw out because everything is just dying so fast, or I just don't have enough time. I really need to shoot, I need to do something. So the way I'm doing this is I made sure that I pick a really good weapon for this guy. Not too heavy, not too light, because obviously there's nothing that's really too light unless you have a pistol, and you can play him this way. So I am making sure that I have a really good weapon that does really decent damage, and guess what? That is the Wraith. Guys, the Wraith is an amazing gun. It is like a mini Claymore. It is so good. It is really good. It does a lot of damage, and because it does a lot of damage, it really helps out with some of the other added bonuses that what I'm doing here. So let me tell you exactly what I'm doing here. I'm using the Wraith, and I added Warp Rounds. This is Warp Rounds 3 that I use in this game. Now, what does that mean? Well, I do have the power ability called Warp. So Warp, every time before I shoot, I try to use Warp first so that I can actually get a biotic damage bonus off my gun. So the Wraith is already powerful as it is. You can use another weapon that's similar to a Wraith, kind of like the Talon as well, or pistols like the Executioner pistol, or anything that's really powerful, and get the same kind of bonus as well. You put Warp Rounds on it, put a really powerful weapon on him that doesn't really take your power recharge away too much, and put Warp Rounds, and then you can go to town by priming the enemies first with Warp, and then shooting your gun and doing massive amounts of destruction. Now, if the enemy is still alive while your power recharge is still coming back, then you can use throw to detonate a biotic explosion and kill them off. So that is the way I'm working with this. So let's look at Warp, by the way, because Warp is absolutely amazing. It's a really great power. According to the tooltip, it actually rips your enemy apart. It really messes them up, especially enemies that are not robots like the Geth. You have organic enemies like like the Reapers, like the Collectors, or Cerberus. You can actually mess them up quite a bit with warps. So it stops them from regenerating health. It weakens armor. So that's a really good thing, especially for brutes, for banshees, for atlases. You prime the enemy first with warp, and on the following ranks that I'm actually using here to make this work is on rank 4. I could go for damage, but since I'm still going to be doing biotic explosions with this guy, I make sure that rank 4 I choose detonate, So like that, the damage impact radius of combo detonations are increased by 50%. Rank 5, I go for expose. So like that, the weapon damage taken by the target is increased by 15%, and the power damage taken by a target is increased by 15% for 10 seconds. So that does two things. Number one, it's helping me out for my biotic explosions if I do get to do one, and number two, it helps my weapon damage. It allows me to use the Wraith the way I'm using it here and do the massive amounts of damage that I'm getting out of this. On rank 6, I go for Pierce, guys, because it does damage to barriers and armor by 50% and weaken armor targets again by an additional 25%. So by using Warp first and then using a gun like the Wraith or the Talon, the Executioner pistol, and then having warp rounds on them, I'm getting the damage of the gun, I'm getting the damage of the additional warp rounds 3, and at the same time I'm getting the biotic damage bonus that I get from using warp rounds specifically. So I always recommend using warp rounds for this kind of build. Don't use incendiary. You can use incendiary, it's fine, but to get this kind of damage, the massive amount of damage that I'm doing here, you definitely want to go for warp rounds. So using warp the power first, then shooting your gun into the enemy will give you a damage boost that is just absolutely amazing. Let's go into throw, because throw is a really great power, even though some enemies can really dodge it, which is really disappointing. But throw on rank 4, what I go for is radius, because I like to make sure I can hit multiple enemies depending if I'm detonating. And also on rank 5, I go for detonate to increase the force and power and damage of biotic detonations by 50%. And on rank 6, I go for force and damage, guys. It's really good, especially if you get your force to 1080, which it's set up this way. What that means is that, I don't know if you guys know, but to stagger phantoms you need 1,000 force, 1,000 N of force at minimum. You cannot go under 1,000 and be able to stagger a phantom. For example, biotic charge, you need your biotic charge to have a force of 1,000 plus, and then you'll be able to stagger a phantom. You'll be able to drop them. So let's say if you had an acolyte, or you stripped the phantom's barriers and you use throw, you will be able to drop a phantom to the ground, which is absolutely amazing. And she'll be on the ground trying to get back up, and that'll give you a moment to be able to destroy her and use your Wraith or your Talon or whatever gun you decide to use. So with this, having throw set up this way, the recharge speed is 1.8 seconds, which is great. So you can use throw to stagger enemies. Like for example, sometimes you see me using it on a Marauder if I don't have warp available yet, and I want to make sure that I have my or I just want to stagger the enemy really quickly. I just use throw at the moment and then shoot him with my Wraith. Mostly though, I use warp because I want that biotic damage bonus on the gun, and it works out quite well. It works out really well, and at the same time it allows your teammates to be able to detonate your primed enemies, which is a really great thing, guys. It's a good team kind of power as well. For fitness, guys, I just go for all bottles to make sure that this guy has at least some health and some shields, which is 825 health, 825 shields. So what's awesome about this guy is that, well, number one, he is a Sentinel, guys. So you can't treat him the way you would treat the other, with the Adepts. If you have an Adept, you notice that the Adept's powers come out really fast, especially even Warp. They come out, the recharge speed is a little higher, a little faster than this guy. So the way to work with this guy is to kind of use him in between. Use him a little bit of both as a biotic, and at the same time use him as a weapons class. And you just go around. I'm just constantly priming enemies, making sure that I have warp on them, using my gun on their face, and just destroying them, which is absolutely a lot of fun to do, guys. So you can see here, especially on a map like this, it works quite well. And a gun like the Wraith does great amounts of damage. Now, mind you, I had not used the Wraith for quite some time. I have been doing a lot of sniping lately with the Javelin. I constantly use the Claymore. I'm using other guns as well. And the Venom Shotgun, I've just been using that so much. And I already have gameplay for you guys, which is uploading after this video on the Venom Shotgun. And there'll also be a tutorial as well coming up in the future. But I've been I've been playing a lot with those weapons. And that's been great. That's been great really using those weapons. But a gun like this, like the Wraith, is so good because it really does so much damage. And if you look at it, especially on the tooltip, and if you put for example, in this situation, I put the shotgun high velocity barrel. It increases the damage by 25%, and at the same time, it allows bullets to pierce 0.65 meter thick objects. So you're getting a good damage boost, and at the same time, I am using the shotgun spare thermal clip to increase the spare shot capacity. But set up this way, the damage bar for the Wraith is maxed out. It's total, the bar is maxed out. So that is the great thing about this gun, and plus you get two shots. If you miss the first shot, you get the second one. With other characters, with this gun, you can actually get maybe three shots, depending if you're using Adrenaline Rush or some other kind of power, which is absolutely great. But guys, the Wraith on this guy is amazing, as you can see here, and it really does, due to the fact that it does a lot of damage. It's not too heavy, it's not too light. Even though the recharge speed here is 90%, it's still really decent, because you know that the power recharge for your warp and throw combo is going to take quite a bit of time anyways. So you're probably, if you're okay with using a gun like the Wraith, it's just don't go heavier than that, guys. Don't go into the negative numbers. Do not go into you can go with a Claymore, which is totally fine actually as well, but you really won't be able to take advantage of his biotic explosion. They'll take way too long. If you use something like the Wraith of the Talon, stuff like that, you can at least get biotic explosions out. But the great thing about this character as well is that you can make him a total weapons class. Let's say you didn't even want to do biotic explosions. Let's say you didn't want throw. You could actually put all his passives on, forget about throw, put warp so you could get a biotic damage bonus, put a Claymore, and then put a Falcon to stagger enemies, or whatever you want to do, and just use nothing but weapon damage on this guy and get the biotic damage bonus off of warp, and at the same time get damage reduction off of the tech armor, and make this guy like a tanky soldier. So that is also another way that you can use him. So he has many benefits because of his tech armor, many benefits due to warp as well, and even throw, because throw does a great job as well, even though sometimes some of the enemies can just, well, they can dodge it. But hey, it's still a great power. It works really great against the smaller enemies, against the mercs, against marauders, against husks, against troopers, Cerberus, and Geth as well. So it's a really good thing with this guy. So that's one great thing about him, and I really enjoyed him that way. Now here I'm using Geth Scanner. Ever since Geth Scanner came out, guys, I think it's one of the greatest gear bonuses. And I was definitely talking to one of the BioWare developers about this, and just to let him know, I was like, I thought this was a great, like, I thought Geth Scanner was a great gear bonus. And what's interesting is that there were a lot of other gear bonus ideas that were out there. It just they never made it, due to time constraints, etc., and the DLC. But this, I am so glad that a gear bonus like this works out, because it works out for this character. Now, mind you, you don't have to use the Geth Scanner. If you decide not to go with the Geth Scanner, you could go with the Shotgun Amp. So like that, you could get an additional 15%, shotgun damage bonus, or you can go with something else like a Survivor loadout or a Shield Booster 5, Stronghold package, etc. Whatever else you want, But the great thing about using this guy with the Geth Scanner is that it allows you to know where the enemies are at all time. And yes, I know that some of you guys are going to mention that I am using a power efficiency module. I am using a power efficiency module, because even though I know that the Wraith is not too bad, the power recharge is 90%, I still want to make sure that my power recharge comes up. So if you have the capability of using the power efficiency module, like I'm using power efficiency module 3, do use it. Like this, at least you can get out a few biotic explosions. Your power recharge is still really good, and it works out quite well. Now, if you didn't want to use a power efficiency module, then let your gear bonus be the one that gives you an additional percentage towards power efficiency. So let me explain that. So let's say you didn't want to use a power efficiency module for your armor bonus, and you wanted to use a cyclonic modulator, then you go right ahead and use that. So like that, you have more shields. You can take more shots, and then let your gear bonus be something that'll give you power recharge. And there are quite a few. There are two gear bonuses that give you that. One is the structural ergonomics, which gives you a power recharge speed bonus of plus 15%. So then you can use that, and then so like that you can get some the bonus for the power recharge. And then for your armor, then you can just put a cyclonic modulator, which is awesome. You made the guy a little tankier, and at the same time you got your power recharge set up. So that's a good thing. So that's just a way to kind of spec out that situation if you don't want to, if you don't want to use a power recharge module for the armor bonus. So that's that. And even if you don't use a power recharge module, you're fine. It's still not too bad with this build. You're still going to be able to cast warp. You're still going to be able to cast throw. The recharge speed is still not too bad with the wraith because it's a heavy gun, but it's not too heavy. It's just heavy enough that you can do that you can still get your power recharge out quite well. So that's another thing. Now there's another one, Omni Capacitors, which gives you a plus 12% power recharge speed bonus, and also gives you tech damage. So you can use something like this. So let's say you're detonating tech armor, and at the same time you have a heavy gun, so you get the best of two worlds. You get power recharge speed, and you also get additional 12% tech damage for your tech armor. So that's a great thing, guys. So going back to tech armor for a little bit, guys, I think it's pretty amazing that for a long time a lot of people didn't understand tech armor, and back in the day I used to see a lot of games where there were people just detonating with tech armor. I may do some gameplay like that because I think it'll be a lot of fun just to go around and do tech armor gameplay. But still, tech armor is really good, guys. It gives you durability, and at the same time it does damage. It works against the enemies, and I enjoy it. And the other thing is warp rounds. When we're talking about the weapon, guys, if you don't know by now, warp rounds are my favorite like ammo types. It really is. Warp rounds are really excellent. They're really good. At first, when I first started playing the game, I didn't understand them. I thought that they were like, I don't know, they were to set up biotic explosions. I thought that they were, they prime enemies, but they don't. It does none of that. It actually gives you additional weapon damage bonus. It gives you a biotic damage bonus. So for Warp Rounds 3, check this out. By me using Warp first, then shooting with the Claymore, I get a damage increase for Warp Rounds of 35%, plus a biotic damage bonus of plus 75%. Okay, and it also weakens armor, plus 50% for 4 seconds. So in this situation, I'm getting a damage of plus 35%, and then the biotic damage bonus is on top of that. The other ammo types don't give you that, guys. You only get a 1 damage bonus. That's it. For incendiary rounds, 1 damage bonus. Phasic rounds, same thing. All the above. But warp rounds gives you something so special. It gives you an additional damage bonus, which will make the Wraith amazing. And that's why you're wondering, you're seeing this, man, the Wraith is good, but not that good. And the Wraith is great on infiltrators as well, because you get the infiltrator, you get the attack cloak bonus of 80%. So now think about it. The attack cloak bonus is usually 80%, unless you're using the AIU, the Alliance Infiltrator unit, which gets another additional percentage towards shotgun, using shotguns. But think about it. That's 80%, an additional additional damage bonus of tactical cloak. But when you use Warp Rounds 3 in this situation, you're casting Warp first, then shooting, you're getting a damage of 35% and a biotic damage bonus of 75%. So it's quite close. It's not the same, but it's quite close. So guys, if you're looking for massive amounts of damage, this Human Sentinel can totally deal it. And he's absolutely awesome, guys. So I truly hope that you guys have enjoyed this. I hope that you guys enjoy some gold gameplay as opposed to tons of platinum gameplay that I've been providing lately. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next build video.